What do you mean the chicken was raw? Graham Rivers stared at the email on his tablet, the words from the catering client hitting harder than he expected. It was the third complaint in 2 weeks, this time from a law firm that ordered a lunch spread for 20 people and ended up tossing half of it. Not because it was late, but because the grilled chicken was undercooked and the sides were cold. The client's email ended with a promise. "We won't be ordering from you again." Graham hated that kind of message. He'd worked hard to build this business. 7 years ago, he scraped together his savings to buy a struggling fast casual catering chain from a retiring couple. Back then, there were just 3 stores. Now, there were 17 across the state. He didn't grow it by sitting in a boardroom. He'd spent the early years visiting every location, hiring staff, testing recipes, and delivering food himself. But once the company grew, layers of managers came in. District leads, store managers, operations heads. Graham stopped being on the floor and started hearing about problems secondhand. This latest complaint came from Store 12, located just outside of Greenville. It had always been a solid performer. Good numbers, steady feedback. But something had shifted. He'd noticed a pattern in the past month: late deliveries, order mistakes, lukewarm food. The store's manager, a guy named Chad, insisted everything was fine. "Busy season," he said. "We're stretched thin, but we've got it handled." Graham wasn't convinced, and he hated not knowing.
So he made a decision.
The next morning, he walked into Store 12 wearing worn jeans, a black hoodie, and a baseball cap. He'd grown a beard over the past 6 months, part laziness, part disguise. He also wore thick-rimmed glasses and had slightly dyed his naturally dirty blonde hair to a darker brown. Nobody in this store had met him in person. He'd only spoken to Chad on a video call once, and the others had likely never seen his face outside the old company photo buried in the onboarding packet. He placed an order at the counter for a catered lunch, 12 chicken boxes with sides, noted for corporate pickup in 2 hours. A young woman behind the counter, name tag reading Naomi N., greeted him. "Hey there. Need catering?" she asked.
Yeah.
"Got a meeting at the marketing firm down the street. Can I get 12 chicken boxes, macaroni, and green beans for the sides? Please make sure it's fresh. We've had some issues before." Naomi typed it in, nodding. "We'll take care of it." Graham paid, then walked to a corner seat near the soda machine, pulled out his phone, and pretended to scroll. His eyes stayed on the kitchen entrance. An hour later, just before the 2-hour pickup time, a tall man with slicked back hair and a sharp voice walked into the kitchen. Graham recognized him from a staff directory photo.
Chad.
"All right, people," Chad said, clapping once. "We got a lunch pickup in 10. Let's move." A young kitchen worker named Devin looked up from the prep table. "We didn't do the final temp checks yet." Chad waved him off. "It's boxed chicken, man. We grilled it 20 minutes ago. Don't waste time logging stupid numbers. Just write it down. Mac and green beans are good, right?" Another employee, a girl with short curls, hesitated. "I think the mac's been sitting a while." "It's fine. Just stir it.
Put a little hot water in it if it's thick."
"We don't have time to remake sides. Just mark the quality check sheet and let's roll." Graham's stomach turned. He watched as Devin scribbled fake temperature numbers on a laminated sheet hung near the prep station. Naomi walked over to grab the boxes from the warmer. Chad looked at her. "Tell the guy it's all fresh and checked. Smile and mean it." Graham stood up and walked slowly to the counter. Naomi saw him and smiled. "Hey, your order's ready." "Appreciate it," he said, accepting the bags. He glanced at Chad, who stood behind the line with his arms crossed, not recognizing him. As Graham turned to leave, Naomi leaned closer and whispered, "Sorry about the wait. We've been short-staffed since 3 people quit last week. They're tired of getting yelled at." Graham nodded quietly. "Thanks for the heads up." He walked out, heart pounding. The food felt only lukewarm in the bags. He didn't actually have a meeting to attend. He drove to a nearby park, sat on a bench, and opened one of the boxes. The chicken was definitely undercooked pale in the middle, juices cloudy. He tried a bite of macaroni.
Bland, lukevarm.
The green beans tasted like they'd been reheated from yesterday. He sat there for a long time, staring at the food. This is what his company was giving to clients now. This is what his brand stood for at Store 12. And the manager, the guy he trusted to run this place, was encouraging staff to fake quality checks just to save time. Graham looked down at the business card in his wallet. The same one he handed out at conferences and investor meetings. The name on it felt heavy today. Graham Rivers, CEO. Tomorrow, they were going to find out exactly who he was. Graham returned to Store 12 the next morning before sunrise, this time as an applicant. He wore a faded green delivery driver's jacket, kept his cap low, and introduced himself as Greg. The posting on the company's internal site, still active, was for a part-time prep assistant. He'd already submitted a fake resume under a dummy corporate name the night before, listing minimal experience and a flexible schedule. The assistant manager, a wiry guy named Ross in his early 30s, looked tired but waved him in. "You're the one who applied last night, right? Greg something."
Yeah.
"Just looking for some extra hours," Graham said, keeping his voice steady. Ross didn't ask many questions. He handed him an apron and pointed toward the back. "We'll see how you do. You're on prep with Devin." Devin was already at the work table, slicing tomatoes with earbuds in. He looked up, nodded once, then went back to work. "Morning," Graham said as he washed up. "Busy day?" Devin shrugged. "They're all busy. We're down to 4 kitchen staff, including me."
So yeah.
No one else was in the kitchen yet. Graham started cutting onions beside him. They worked in silence until Ross came back with a clipboard. "Greg, once you're done with that, help Naomi with the trays. We've got 2 catering runs by 10. This was the first time Graham realized Naomi worked morning shifts too. She looked exhausted, her hair tied back hastily, sleeves rolled up. She didn't say much as she handed him foil pans and pointed toward the steam table. "You knew?" she asked without looking up. "Started today." She nodded. "Don't let Chad catch you standing still. He'll eat you alive." "Sounds fun." She didn't laugh.
He's supposed to be here by now.
"Probably shows up late again." By 8, Chad finally walked in, coffee in hand, sunglasses still on. He didn't greet anyone, just walked straight to the office in the back. Ross followed him a minute later. Voices rose through the thin door. "I told you we can't keep skipping the supply order. There's no ranch, no lids, and we're out of the compostable forks again. We don't need the fancy forks. Use the plastic ones from the bulk bin. Nobody cares." "They do when they're paying for premium packaging, man." Chad groaned. "We're not adding another $100 to this week's order just for forks. Figure it out." The door slammed shut. Graham kept working. By 9, the kitchen heated up literally and figuratively. Orders streamed in through the POS. Naomi juggled phone calls, walk-in customers, and online issues while prepping boxes for 2 corporate clients. Devin burned his hand on the steamer lid and cursed under his breath. "You okay?" Graham asked. Devin pulled off his glove and ran water over his wrist. "Second time this week. That handle's loose, but Chad keeps saying it's not in the urgent budget." "You reported it?" "Yeah." Nothing changed. Graham gritted his teeth and kept packing trays. By 10:15, the first catering pickup was already late. The driver, an older woman named Sandra, was waiting near the back exit, arms crossed. "Where's the order for Bridal Dental?" she called out. "Still finishing it," Naomi said without looking up. "I was supposed to leave 10 minutes ago." Naomi didn't answer. Graham walked the tray over himself. "Sorry about the delay." Sandra took it with a sigh. "It's not you, Han, it's this place. I've been doing deliveries for 6 years. This used to be the best location. Now it's chaos every morning." Before Graham could respond, Chad finally emerged from the back, sunglasses off, face flushed. "What's the hold-up?" Naomi stood up straight. Second order's not boxed. We ran out of the right lids, and the mac's still cold. Chad walked over to the steam table, dipped a ladle into the pan, and tasted it. It's fine. Box it up and go. It's not at temp, Devin said flatly. Chad turned to him. You want to stay late and remake it? We shouldn't be sending food that's not hot enough. Chad stepped closer. Look, you want to play health inspector? Go work for the county. We've got quotas to hit. No offense, but one more complaint, and we're gonna lose the whole Bright Hill account, Naomi said. Chad's tone shifted. You think you know how to run this place better than me? Nobody answered. He grabbed the tray, slapped the lid shut, and shoved it toward Sandra. It's done. Go. Graham locked eyes with Devin, who looked like he wanted to say more but bit it back. By lunchtime, the tension had sunk into every corner of the building. Graham rotated through the line, helping with sandwich assembly, then shifted to dishes when the sink backed up. The guy on dish duty, Miguel, barely spoke English and worked without gloves because there weren't any left in his size. In the break room, Graham found a stack of employee schedules pinned to the corkboard. Most shifts were double booked, with only 4 to 5 people covering what should have been a team of 8. Several names were crossed out in red marker: resigned, terminated, or just gone. He turned to Devin quietly. Why are people quitting? Devin looked away. You've been here one day. I know, but I can see what's happening. Devin wiped his hands on a towel. 2 weeks ago, Ashley got screamed at in front of customers for asking to take her break. She walked out mid-shift. Then Mark got written up for calling in sick twice. He has asthma. Chad said he was being dramatic. Graham kept his voice low. And corporate doesn't know? Who do you think signs off on the reports? Devin said quietly. Ross tries to keep things running, but Chad controls the numbers. Everything looks fine on paper. Graham walked to the back and found Ross by the walk-in fridge, restocking drinks. Can I ask something? Graham said. Ross nodded, not looking up. Why do you stay? Ross paused. Because if I leave, the whole thing collapses. And I've got a kid starting school next month. Graham nodded once and stepped back. The afternoon was relentless. A last-minute catering order for a nearby hospital came in just after 2. Chad insisted they take it, even though the line was already backed up and supplies were low. Naomi finally snapped. We don't have enough trays, Chad. We're out of the eco boxes again. Use the regular ones. They leak. You know that. Then double them. She dropped a stack of boxes onto the counter. Why don't you help for once? I'm managing, he said coolly.
No.
You're hiding in the back while we do everything. He stepped forward. Watch your tone. Naomi didn't flinch. You want to fire me? Go ahead. I've got nothing to lose at this point. Ross walked in, saw the tension and froze. Chad turned to him. Get your girl in line. She's not my anything. Graham's jaw tensed. He walked away before his temper got the better of him. He needed a quiet place to think, so he stepped outside near the loading dock. Sandra, the delivery driver, was back, smoking against the wall. Back again, he asked. Always, she said, exhaling. You're new?
Yeah.
She looked at him. You look like you're not. I've worked a lot of kitchens. Well, she said, flicking ash into a can. This one's broken. Graham didn't answer. He just looked through the back door, watching Naomi box the last of the order with trembling hands. He'd seen enough. Tomorrow, he wasn't coming back as Greg. The next morning, Graham arrived at store 12 just after 8. This time, he wore a tailored navy button-down, pressed slacks, and leather shoes. His beard was trimmed, glasses swapped for contacts. The only thing he carried was a black folder under one arm. He walked straight through the front doors. Naomi was at the register, punching in an order. She glanced up, paused, then looked again, recognition creeping across her face. Her hand hovered mid-air, over the touchscreen. Ross stepped out from the back hallway, wiping his hands on a towel. His eyes locked on Graham's, confusion tightening his brow. Chad was nowhere in sight. Graham didn't stop moving. He walked past the counter, through the swinging kitchen doors, and stood in the center of the line. Devin turned from the prep table. Sandra, the driver, was just loading a tray onto the cart. Miguel was scrubbing a pan in the corner. "I need everyone to stop what they're doing," Graham said clearly, projecting his voice through the kitchen. Every motion halted. Ross stepped in behind him, voice uncertain. "Sir, I'm not sure you can be back here." Graham turned slowly. "You don't recognize me?" Ross hesitated. "You're Graham Rivers. I own this company." The silence that followed was absolute. Naomi stepped through the side door a second later. "You're the guy from yesterday," she said quietly. "Greg." Graham nodded once. "I was undercover. I wanted to see what was really happening in this store." Devin dropped the knife he'd been holding. Miguel turned off the faucet without a word. Ross took a step back, stunned. "No one told us. That was the point," Graham said. "I've read the reports. I've listened to the excuses. But until I stood in this kitchen, I had no idea how far things had slid." Chad's voice rang out from the hallway. "What's going on?" He strode in, holding a tablet, expression annoyed. Then he saw Graham. His posture stiffened instantly. "Who are you?" Graham turned to face him. "We've spoken. Briefly. I'm the man who signs your paycheck." Chad blinked, but recovered quickly.
Ah,
"Mr. Rivers. I wasn't told you were visiting today. We could have. You weren't told because you would have staged a performance," Graham said. "Which is exactly what I didn't want." Chad's jaw tightened. "I assure you, everything is under control." Graham stepped closer. "No, it's not. Yesterday, I watched you ignore a safety concern, override a temperature check, and push out food that wasn't ready. I heard you tell an employee to falsify quality logs. I watched you disrespect staff who are doing 3 times their job with half the support they need. That's not leadership. That's negligence." Chad scoffed, folding his arms. "With all due respect, you spent 1 day here. You don't know how hard it is to run this location. We're understaffed and under-resourced." "I know exactly why you're understaffed," Graham replied. "No one wants to work under someone who treats them like a liability." Chad's eyes darted around the room, searching for backup. Ross looked away. Naomi crossed her arms. Devin didn't move. "I've done nothing outside company policy," Chad said, voice sharper now. "You want to talk about quotas, deadlines, labor costs? I've kept this store profitable." "At what cost?" Graham said. "Client retention is down. We've lost regular accounts. Complaints have tripled. You're cutting corners to hit numbers, and it's destroying everything we built." Chad's tone shifted again, more defensive now. "Look, I get it. You're upset. But you can't expect perfection with the kind of staff we have to work with. Some of these people can barely handle basic tasks. I mean, Miguel can't even read half the labels in the walk-in." Graham's expression went cold. "You're done." Chad blinked. "What?" "You're terminated. Effective immediately." "You can't be serious." "I'm completely serious," Graham said. "You just crossed a line. You disrespected a team member based on language and background. That's not just unethical, it's in violation of company policy and basic decency.
get your things."
You're not stepping foot in this kitchen again." Chad opened his mouth, closed it, then turned and walked out without another word. Graham turned to Ross. "You should have reported what was going on here." Ross looked down. "I didn't think anyone would believe me. Chad reports directly to corporate. Every time I raised concerns, he buried them. Then you should have come to me. I built this company on transparency, not fear." Graham paused, then softened slightly. "But you stayed. You kept this place from falling apart." "I see that now." Ross nodded, barely. Graham faced the rest of the staff. None of you deserved what's been happening here, and I take responsibility for letting it get this far. That ends today. He pulled out his phone and made a call on speaker. Marla? It's Graham. I need 2 things immediately. 1. Send HR to store 12. We're conducting full exit and incident interviews. 2. I want a temporary GM and a rotating support team here for the next 2 weeks. Pull from Greenville and Columbia. This team needs backup. He ended the call and looked at Naomi. You've been holding this place together. I heard what you said yesterday when you thought no one important was listening. She straightened. I didn't mean, you meant every word. And you were right. So here's what I'm offering. I want you to step into an interim leadership position. You'll work with the incoming support manager and I'll personally approve your hours and compensation adjustment. She blinked. Wait, me? You've already been doing the job. Now you'll get the title and the tools. Naomi stared at him for a long moment, then nodded slowly. Graham turned to Devin. You've got good instincts. You spoke up when it mattered. I want you to help oversee kitchen training. We're going to fix the quality systems. For real this time. Devin looked stunned. I mean...
Yeah.
Okay. Graham pointed toward the back. We're replacing that steamer. Today.
And the gloves.
And the forks. And everything else that's been ignored. He turned to Miguel, who had remained silent near the sink. Gracias por tu trabajo. Lo vamos a hacer mejor. Prometido. Miguel smiled faintly and gave a small nod. Graham looked around at the kitchen, at the cracked tiles, the old prep boards, the dented pans, and felt the weight of the last few years settle across his shoulders. This business was never supposed to be about numbers first. It was supposed to be about people. About feeding others with care and respect. Somewhere along the way, we lost that. I lost that. And I'm sorry. He let the words hang in the air, then added, If you'll give me a chance, I'd like to earn your trust back. Naomi stepped forward. If you're willing to do the work, so are we. Graham nodded. Then let's get to it. He rolled up his sleeves and walked toward the prep table. There was still a lunch shift to run. By the following Monday, the changes had already begun. A regional support manager named Kyle arrived at store 12 just after sunrise, clipboard in hand and sleeves rolled up. He didn't walk in like he owned the place. He observed, asked quiet questions, and stuck close to Naomi. She was now in a clean black polo with a laminated name badge that read interim team lead, though she still wore her old sneakers. Graham had made sure the promotion came with a raise, but she hadn't had time to buy new shoes yet. She hadn't taken a real break in days. She didn't complain. Graham, now operating from the company's Greenville office, had kept his word. Supplies that had been delayed for weeks arrived within 48 hours. The broken steamer was replaced with a newer model that actually latched properly. Extra gloves, new utensils, and complete catering kits were delivered in bulk. For once, the staff had what they needed. But no one pretended the problems were fixed just because the tools were. The tension hadn't evaporated. The gaps in trust were still there. During a short break between prep and lunch rush, Devin leaned against the walk-in cooler, arms crossed, watching Ross run inventory. Naomi was kneeling beside the dry goods shelf, sorting mislabeled bins. Never thought we'd still be standing here after last week, Devin said. Naomi didn't look up. Still feels like it could fall apart if we breathe too hard. You think he's serious? Graham. Naomi stood and wiped her hands on a towel. He didn't have to come here. And he definitely didn't have to do dishes with us during Friday's rush. So yeah, I think he's trying. Ross cut in, not looking away from his list. Trying doesn't make up for what we've been through. Naomi's voice was even. But it's a start. And it's more than anyone else ever did. By Thursday, the new hires started arriving. Not all at once, just 2 additional prep workers and 1 cashier in training. They were quiet at first, keeping their heads down. Naomi paired each of them with someone steady, Devin, Miguel, or herself. She kept shifts short for the new hires, careful not to overwhelm them. Kyle pulled aside Ross late that afternoon and handed him a sealed envelope. Ross opened it slowly. Inside was a formal offer. Full-time assistant general manager, with a pay adjustment and direct reporting line to the regional office, bypassing any future store-level mismanagement. Ross lowered the paper. Why me? Kyle shrugged. Your name was on every staff member's recommendation list. Even Graham mentioned how you held the line when things were falling apart. Ross looked at the envelope again, then folded it neatly without saying anything. In the kitchen, Devin trained one of the new prep workers, a quiet teenager named Leah, on proper chicken handling. He made sure she understood where the thermometer was, how to log temperatures, and how to speak up if she saw something wrong. He didn't rush her. He didn't raise his voice. Graham had asked him to help rebuild the food safety system.
He took that seriously.
That evening, after close, Naomi stayed late to finish the catering board for the weekend. As she erased old orders and rewrote the new ones, she noticed Graham step into the store wearing the same blue button-down from the week before. I thought you had meetings today, she said without turning. I did. Still do. She capped the marker and faced him. You're back. I wanted to see the board. You could have texted Kyle. Graham stepped closer, reading the names and organizations on the list. Bright Hill Dental rebooked. Naomi nodded. Called this afternoon. Said they heard weed made changes. Gave us one more shot. And the food. Devin temp-checked every pan. Twice. Graham smiled faintly, but it faded quickly. I owe you something. Naomi raised an eyebrow. An apology. For what you had to carry. For how long you carried it. For every time someone in this company looked the other way. Naomi crossed her arms, not out of resistance, just habit. You're not the first boss to apologize. But I want to be the last one who has to. She looked at him for a long moment. If you mean that, don't just fix the store. Fix the system that let it get this bad. I'm working on it. Good. She didn't thank him. He didn't expect her to. The following week, Store 12 passed its surprise audit with a near-perfect score. The regional team reviewed every log, inspected every station, and interviewed every employee. The report noted a clear cultural shift and restored adherence to safety protocols. Graham read it twice, then emailed a copy to the entire leadership team with a single line. If it can happen here, it can happen anywhere. 2 weeks later, the company held a closed-door review involving all store managers across the state. Graham led it himself. He didn't open with numbers or charts. He opened with a photo of Store 12's kitchen staff, taken the day after Chad was terminated. They were still exhausted in the picture, still bearing the weight of a hard week, but there was something steady in their faces. Not hope.
Not yet.
But resolve. This is what accountability looks like, Graham said. Not just firing someone. Listening. Owning the failure. And earning back trust, one shift at a time. He didn't name names. But the message was clear. From now on, leadership would be measured not just by margins but by how a team held together under pressure. At Store 12, things didn't become perfect overnight. There were still supply hiccups, a few late orders, and staff calling out on rainy mornings. But the energy had shifted. Naomi started taking her breaks again. Devin stopped double-checking everyone's work and started trusting his team. Miguel signed up for the company's ESL support program, encouraged by a quiet conversation he'd had with Graham the week before. The staff still moved quickly, but not fearfully. And one Friday afternoon, as the last catering order was loaded onto the van, Naomi turned to the team and said something no one had heard at Store 12 in a long time. Good work today. Let's lock it down and go home. They did. And they came back the next morning.
On time.
Willing. Respected. Ready.